Hello, welcome back to another episode of Somewhere Between a Film and TV podcast. I am your host, Daniel Parra. And number one, thank you so much for listening and watching. Number two, if you could, please down below, like, comment, and subscribe. What did you think of Darren Aronofsky's Caught Stealing? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know. As for everyone else, remember, everything we review will always have full spoilers. If you haven't seen this yet and you're listening to it and you're like, oh man, I want to see this, well, like, subscribe, come back, and then join us back here. But as for everyone else, you saw this, you're like, God, I want to talk about this. Not a lot of people have seen it, unfortunately, and I'm dying to see what people are thinking. That's me in this situation right here, because I wish that this movie was doing a little bit better, because hey, spoilers for what I thought of it, I think it's pretty great. And as for the movie itself, let's start talking about it. When his punk rock neighbor asks him to take care of his cat for a few days, New York City bartender Hank Thompson suddenly finds himself caught in the middle of a motley crew of threatening gangsters who all want a piece of him. So, this movie itself, it feels like with that description alone, I didn't come up with it, can't say that I wrote that, but the Google description, IMDb description says so. Does it not sound like the yesteryear of the late 90s, funny enough, this takes place in 1998, of early Tarantino, Guy Ritchie. I don't like this movie at all, but the Boondock Saints, and that old school late 90s, we were just talking about escalation of events, but this guy down in his luck, it's like a tragedy after tragedy. It's someone that should not be stuck in the events that they're stuck in. It's like nightlife and grungy and dirty, grimy, all of the words that you can think of. I want to get into this by saying that I am a gigantic fan of Martin Scorsese's After Hours. I think it's one of the best movies ever made. I think that Uncut Gems is recently in the pantheon of that New York, grimy, like really sort of dirt bag type of character study event film that is anxiety inducing and about this sort of undercurrent of crime in New York where it's just all the graffitied backgrounds and all of the trash and everything you can think of littering the streets essentially. But I'm explaining all this to say that I think that this type of movie, the mobster movie, the gangster movie, even tied in with the just person that is stuck in the wrong place at the wrong time, is a huge soft spot of mine. And it feels like Darren Aronofsky wouldn't make a movie like this. He's much more interested in movies that I actually really love that are, you know, let's use the term art house for a second, but a lot more in the pantheon of, I can see a world, and it sort of slips here into it a little bit because the tonal shifts are there. But The Whale, a movie I thought was okay. I thought that it had a mean streak that was kind of its own demise a little bit, and that's sort of why that movie's overall point didn't work, because it was making fun of the character it was trying to depict in a serious light. And I think that movie's own tendencies are part of its own problem. But before that, I love Mother. I love Black Swan. I love The Wrestler. I really liked Noah. I'm a fan of his. I'm a fan of Darren Aronofsky. And here, though, he's pivoted a little bit. This is way more in the popcorn, dialogue-centric, event-centric type of movie where it's way more character, this frenetic zaniness of them. They're sort of strange people that exist within the confines of this world, but you can also see kind of existing in that other type of mob movie where it's like, we call this guy this because he's, you know, exactly, he's got one thing about him. Like Bad Bunny's in this says the name's Colorado. There's like Pavel, and then these two Jewish hitmen played by, or organized crime men played by Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber. It's very much a eccentric cast is how I'll put this. But I think that it's anchored by a really, really good leading man performance in Austin Butler. Austin Butler has really exploded in the past couple of years. And I think that his central charisma, his performance. I loved the bike rider specifically because of him. He's the best thing in that. And here it's the same thing. He's got, for the first time, a real energy in terms of being a real regular guy. It feels like that this person is just caught in a situation. And he's just stuck there. He's stuck with everything transpiring around him. That's why it reminded me so much of After Hours. And he's just wrong place, wrong time, wrong guy, wrong neighbor. And so a lot of the events of this, I think, that transpire are really anchored by his performance here. He gives a real weight, even just behind his eyes. That's how you know that Austin Butler is, to me, a really talented actor. I thought that Elvis was amazing, but I know that arguably musician performance is maybe easier, but I think that he adds something that whenever people say that, like, oh, this is a real life thing. When people say, like, oh, they have crazy eyes, like there's something behind their eyes that might be, like a little loose. I think with actors, it's a different thing where they can act with their eyes. And if you know that they can act with their eyes, that makes them, like, just even more so accessible. I think I said that about Bob Odenkirk in Better Call Saul, for example, where their face can say one thing, but they're able to do this real human emotion capability where their eyes say another thing, and that's just real life, and they're able to convey and put themselves into that. And that, I think Austin Butler really plays into that. For example, in Dune Part 2, he has the eyes, like the screw loose crazy eyes in there, because he's able to control that and able to do that. But I haven't even touched on this yet, because I started just talking about the movie itself. Did I love it? Did I hate it? Or am I somewhere between on it? Well, I think this might be one of my favorite movies of the year so far. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it. I loved it a lot. I think that this old school throwback late 90s kind of movie is my jam, really. I think that the violence here, the dialogue, the old school kind of Guy Ritchie, Tarantino nature of it is the exact type of thing that I really like. And also After Hours. After Hours is just, this homages that a couple of times. I mean, even, oh my God, I'm blanking on his name, but he's in After Hours itself. He is the bartender that is in this, he owns the bar. And I loved him in this as well. Griffin Dunn, yeah. But it's just funny to acknowledge like what his role is in the bar in After Hours, and then his ownership in this, I think is really cool. But what I liked so much about this is that everyman quality that Austin Butler has mixed in with this insane sort of underground current of the mafia, the New York crime aesthetic. And that's what I also want to touch on next, is another strength of this before we get more into the characters. In terms of setting, and in terms of the ability to depict something that is set design or really evoke an era, the late 90s here of New York is portrayed as like grimy grunge, and even the opening titles uses the subway platform, and you see a cockroach crawl across the titles, so we know exactly what we're going for. There's a long panning shot of Austin Butler running through the street while he's, on the move for something, and you can see it's a really, really well done shot. It's like maybe just 20 seconds long, but he's moving throughout it, and he crosses this video store, and in the background there's like busted buildings and this like kind of grimy looking, these signs that are falling apart. Everything looks like it's held together by tape and beer bottles and trash. And I think that the aesthetic there is really well done. It's really going for a kind of punk grunge aesthetic that I like a lot, because that's sort of the type of look and feel we're dealing with. And it's accompanied by a soundtrack that also feels the same way. It's leaning in towards this very, funny enough, British punk kind of inspired idea. Maybe it's because Matt Smith's character as part of this, as sort of the inciting incident just as a character, and that he has to leave to go see his dad because he had a stroke, I believe. And it's just one misunderstanding after another in terms of communication here. But I also liked Zoe Kravitz in this. I love Zoe Kravitz, and I like Zoe Kravitz in this a lot. I think that she brings even more of the down-to-earth nature of Austin Butler's character, in that it ties into what the movie is thematically about in terms of this character. It's funny because I felt like this movie easily could have gone the route of it's not about a whole lot. It could have just been a good time. Oh, good time. But it could have just been a good time, and that's about all we have here. It doesn't have to be anything but just a stressful situation for a couple hours, and it's sort of freewheeling, it's stressful, it's sometimes funny, sometimes really dark, and that's it. But I liked the inciting incident here for Austin Butler's character's growth. He thematically is running away from the things that are kind of haunting him from earlier on in his life. He can't handle the fact that he's zeroing in really more on the superficial part of himself. He was going to go pro. He was an incredible baseball player, and he was going to be drafted, I believe. Yeah, that's the phrasing. And he didn't want to be drafted for the Dodgers, which is funny because he's a Giants fan in this while living in New York, which leads to a funny joke later in the baseball stadium. And going further from that, I felt like thematically, so since his character wants to run away from the events that transpired where he got into a car crash because of not having seatbelts, drinking, and he essentially was responsible for the death of, or at least he feels like he is responsible for the death of his friend in the car. But at the beginning, all he can really focus on is his own ego and not letting go of the past, and the fact that he felt like he could have gone pro. It's one of those things where sometimes you hear people in real life where it's like, oh, you should have seen me back when I was in high school football. You should have seen me back when I was in high school. I could bench 350, you know? He's kind of like that character type. But I also liked that in that earlier on in the movie, when he's portrayed as like this cool guy, he's got this, like, he's a night bartender. He's in this seedy street bar where people say that he's the life of the party until he's not, because he gets all bitter about baseball. It's a line that's essentially, I paraphrase, but that's kind of what's uttered there. Up until you kind of get a glimpse of him during the day. He's an alcoholic. It makes what looked cool previously sort of shift into, oh, this guy's kind of bumming around, and he's kind of obviously not happy with where he is in life. He's got some things going for him, but like Zoe Kravitz's character, but then he kind of pushes that away or fumbles these things to an extent. And so it ends up being an interesting bit of character study for me, for Austin Butler's character, while he's going through all of these things. I feel like the movie itself, what it's kind of going for in terms of, yes, it is all about the mafia, and it's all over the place thing, but I felt like introducing the themes of quite literally running away from your problems, and then he actually has to do it within the physical context, was really smart. It makes the movie have subtext, and it makes the events transpiring almost kind of like a metaphor of a sort, like a visual metaphor of him trying to grow and trying to move past these things and push past these things. And that's what makes me think that this movie overall might have been why Darren Aronofksy was drawn to it in the first place. Because previously, if you look at his other work like Black Swan and The Wrestler, it's about these really talented people that are dealing with the sport or the type of talents that they have and the weight of it, the burden of it. And this is more like a guy who had that, and he lost a grip of it, but while he's focusing on that, he can't quite let go of a past he felt like he was promised that he didn't want to take the responsibility for losing. Up until later, where he feels like he finally does. And that just makes the movie's overall forefront of being about what it's about really smart and really clever to me. And then outside of that, the movie is just straight up really entertaining. I think that it's incredibly funny and really well paced and has this manic energy that's also very freewheeling at the same time, entirely anchored by Austin Butler. I think that since it spends the first, let's say maybe 20-30 minutes establishing the sort of routine he has and the Zoe Kravitz thing, and then the actual first act incident that leads into the second act taking place is whenever he gets essentially beaten by, I think they say Russian. He confuses the Ukrainian and Russian, and it's like kind of an ongoing thing a couple of times throughout the movie. And he gets hospitalized, and he gets these stitches on his side, and that's where things really start to take place and start to go down this sort of like nightmarish scenario for him. And then he goes back home, and then it's just one thing after another, and it's this barrage of bad things happening, which is like the type of movie that I love, I gotta be honest. And it ends up being just really well done in terms of devolving into like a nightmare scenario. And they even say that. They're like, if you do this, this nightmare will end. And I believe that's Regina King who says that. But I also want to shout out specifically one actor that's in this that I've noticed has been doing good work is Bad Bunny. I thought that he was decent in Bullet Train, but he's barely in it. And then he was in Happy Gilmore 2, and he's in that movie quite a bit, and he's really good in it. And then in this one, he's in a little less than that, but he's also very good in this and has to be a threatening presence of a sort, and he is. And he's honestly really good at selling a performance. I don't know if that's like backhanded to say, but I'm starting to notice that he's a really good actor with what he's given, the material that he's given to pull off, which I like a lot. And I also really liked the back and forth of the different kind of gangs that are going between each other. What I like so much about this is that Austin Butler is just caught in this back and forth between the Matt Smith character and Regina King's character, Bad Bunny, and also Vincent D'Onofrio and Liev Schreiber. And I really liked that Austin Butler's character gets to have this time with each of them because we get to understand their perspective a little bit and why they want to do what they're doing. Because it could have gone the easy route. They could have just been cartoony and two-dimensional and that's it. But I do feel like since he gets to spend a little bit more time with each of them, there's a reason why they want to do what they're doing. Maybe the one that gets the least amount of that is Regina King. It kind of is just like this movie starts to do this twist and turn thing where you don't know who's on whose side really. And it's really well handled because even Austin Butler himself shifts his allegiance because it ends up sort of being everyone is out for themselves to an extent, including him. And I think that he starts to sell this kind of not sleazy energy, but that character wants to play into that to convey that he can get these things across and that he can sort of manipulate these people into his own advantage, which he starts to do throughout the movie. It's a cool bit of growth for him to sort of start to like, you see the character evolve throughout the course of the movie to get out of events that are transpiring. And it ends up being really investing because you yourself as the audience member don't even quite know where this is going. And I think that the person who adapted this also wrote, apparently it's a trilogy. I hope to get a second one, please. But I think it's Charlie Huston is how you say it, or maybe Charlie Houston. But adapted his own novel, and I think that it's really well done. I don't know what the novel's like in terms of how accurate this is to it, but I really liked how this was written a whole lot. I liked the character motivations. I liked that Austin Butler's character has this ongoing thing where he calls his mom, which is in an end credit scene. Turns out it was Laura Dern the entire time. I did not know that, which I thought was awesome. And it just ends up being this sort of thing where like I can tell you something about each of these characters. Austin Butler's character is someone running away from his past that needs to grow and accept and maybe learn and move forward. And he's also really into the Giants and baseball and loves it. And Matt Smith's character, it turns out, as shady as he is, was really just going to visit his dad, and then has this like hilarious joke where he gets a tattoo of his dad. It just says dad, and that's it in cursive. And while some of them might be a little lessened than others in terms of the depth that they are given, I do feel like everyone here is given interesting material to work with. And I do wish Zoe Kravitz was in it more, but it does lead to something that I like a lot that happens later on in the movie where it's like the final ending, the third act. I think that it sort of escalates in terms of the ending being wrapped up where Zoe Kravitz's character was shot in the head earlier on, and then you see, believe it's Vincent D'Onofrio pulls out the lighter, the gun, one that's established earlier, and he sees him pull it out, and that's when he starts to put two and two together, and then it has this thematic, let's call it reprise, because that's what it is, where this time it's intentional. He drives straight into this pole that's in the New York street, and he notices that they don't have their seatbelts on because they just ignore him and they end up dying. And I thought that was really clever and really well written, just in terms of being poetic. Even though it's a punchline of a sort, people say that poetry, it rhymes. That's a George Lucas thing. And I like that a lot. I liked that ends up being kind of their own demise, essentially, is themselves and Austin Butler's character. And I just ended up really appreciating a lot of the writing in this movie as well. I loved the action, though. Let's go ahead and address that for a second. The car chases are awesome. There's like two of them, I think. And there's also a foot chase that is really great, that are really well choreographed, really well done. It's not an action movie or anything, but what I really appreciated about this is that it's violent in the extent that the violence feels real. When people get hit or hurt, it feels very visceral and established and being a real thing that's happening in front of you. It's not overly gory or anything. It is straight up really violent, which I thought was really well done. There's a scene that's really kind of hard to watch where he's getting these like staples taken out of him because they're trying to get information out of him, and it's very, very well done, just in terms of how hard it is to watch with that, because the blood doesn't like spurt out, it's not like gory, it's not over the top, it's just, it looks legitimate. Like, it looks legitimate in terms of how it's being conveyed. So it brings you into this more sort of narrow mindset of this being like a realism thing, which I really, really liked. And I thought that overall, just a lot of the craft here on display. Matthew Libatique shot this, and I thought that it was really, really well done in terms of how it was shot. It has this filmic look that gives the grain a lot of heft and the sort of grit to it and the grime. And I liked the use of extras as well in the background, that it makes this feel a lot more established. Like, I don't even know if, I just think that movies sometimes skimp out on including extras in the background, so it feels like a bunch of sets and stages, but this felt like New York, like straight up New York. And yeah, overall, I just thought this movie was wonderful. I loved it a whole lot. I thought that it was really well done and really well written. And if I were to go for any negatives, I feel like Regina King's character could have had a bit more in-depth writing to her. I kind of wanted to know more of her motivation. She ends up just saying that she wants to go to Tulum, and then Austin Butler looks at her and he pieces that he's like, oh, she's part of it. And her character herself, I was kind of like, well, I could take a little bit more of what she's all about, because she's in it for an extent of it, but I loved this overall. That might be my one negative that I have. Outside of that, I think Austin Butler's amazing in it. Zoe Kravitz is amazing in it. Also wish she was in it more, but that's more of like it's not a critique. And Vincent D'Onofrio, Liev Schreiber, Action Bronson's in this too, which I thought was cool. Are all really great in this, and I love the homage to After Hours. Also with the ice cream truck, that was awesome. And overall, yeah, I'm gonna go ahead and give this a score. Let's go ahead and give this a 4.5 out of 5. Pretty big score. I love this. I thought it was really great. I thought it was manic all over the place, really funny, really violent, navigated tonal shifts incredibly well. Really well done. I love this movie. But what did you guys think of it? What did you think of Caught Stealing? Did you love it? Did you hate it? Or are you somewhere between on it? I want to know. And again, thank you guys so much for listening and watching. I believe up next is The Conjuring, The Last Rites. I'm going to double check into that, but I'm pretty sure that's the next movie coming out. So we're going to get into that. The first two are amazing. The third one is okay. But let's see. Let's see how it does. Let's see what I think. Anyway, one more time. Again, if you could, like, comment, and subscribe. In the meantime, guys, thank you so much for listening and watching. I'll see you next time.